Thank you everybody so much for being here. This is part of Accessibility Week to help celebrate Autism Awareness Month or Autism Acceptance Month. And we have here Dr. Rachel Grimsby from Madison University, who's a specialist in accessibility in the arts, accessibility in music. And in part through a grant from the Florida Collegiate Music Education Association, we were able to bring her here to campus and make these lovely webinars to share with other people as well. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rachel Grimsby.
Thank you so much for, oh, wow, foot applause and hand applause. This is going to be an awesome day. Thank you. So if you haven't gone to joinpd.com and put in the join code, what I'm using is a Google extension called Pear Deck. Your first 30 days are free, and then if you choose to use it, there is a fee. However, for future teachers, often your admin can pay for that fee, so you are not paying for it. But I have found that it is a great representative of universal design for learning, which we're going to talk about today, because it provides students a way to engage. It allows me to represent content that I'm teaching, and it also provides alternative means to show knowledge. And that's something that you're going to be able to engage with today. So if you use Google or Google Slides, this is an add-on that you can use in your future classroom. And I've been using it as a college professor for the past 4 years. Today, we're going to do kind of a quick wham, bam, thank you, man. This is what universal design for learning is. There's 3 core principles, 3 guidelines for each, and a multitude of checkpoints. So there's a lot that we're going to kind of broadly go over. But what I want to do is we learn best by doing. So I'm not going to talk at you for 50 minutes. I would run away from myself. But I encourage you to maybe some of the activities we're going to do, if you're not used to elementary general music, might be a little uncomfortable. Kind of just ease into that discomfort and know that it really is a lot of fun. But if you are choosing to do a secondary ensemble, middle school or high school band or choir or orchestra or other types of ensembles, take what we're doing today and see how it can apply, because everything you learn about elementary general music can 100% move into those secondary ensembles. We're going to do some breakout groups after we talk about UDL and I model it for you. And then hopefully we'll have time for questions. But my email is at the beginning and at the end of every slide, so that if you wish to contact me after this, you 100% can. I don't share my email for funsies. It really is there if you have questions. I really do not mind helping you out. So why should we use universal design for learning? Because every single learner in your future classroom and every single one of you in this space, your brains interact with your environment differently. Regardless of whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, all of us engage with our environments differently. We have students who might be first-gen college students in our classrooms. I'm a first-gen college student. And therefore, my experiences with education were not necessarily the same as my peers. So hidden curriculum and hidden expectations were things that I didn't necessarily know. Universal design for learning can kind of break those barriers down so that everybody has accessibility to the curriculum. People have different language abilities. We have students who are non-speaking. We have students where English is not their first language. We have students who speak multiple languages. So how can we bring those languages into our classroom rather than making everything English-centric? How can we have a bilingual or trilingual classroom? What does that look like? Universal design for learning can help. Different attention spans and interests, right? When I teach elementary general music, I know that some of the students in that classroom aren't going to be elementary general music educators. How do I keep them engaged? How do I make that content relevant when I know they're going to graduate and go into middle school or high school? So again, UDL accounts for variability in learning. Every student is different, regardless of label. So there are 3 principles for universal design for learning, and all of these are based in neuroscience. So fun fact, CAST, the Center for Applied Science and Technology, was actually born in a pizza shop in New England. They were just talking about Apple And I know you all know Apple products, but when I was in 5th grade, we had a brand new computer lab of Apple II computers. You all probably have no idea what those are, but we used them to learn typing skills. We had actual floppy disks, and we played number munchers and Oregon Trail. So for those of you watching at home, you know, high five if you played Oregon Trail. They were the people who were meeting in the pizza shop wanted to see how the new Apple technology could be used to support learning needs. So this has been going on CAST since about 85. And it has continually grown, working with researchers and educators to center pedagogy on how students learn best. So the first principle connects to our limbic system. I'm not going to go into neuroscience and brain-based learning because that's a whole different session, but I love the brain and I love talking about the neurobiological basis of learning. The limbic system is where we have fight or flight. It's where we have emotions, and that's where motivation is housed. And you know that if you're not motivated or connected to a teacher or content, what happens? Disengage. You're not going to learn, right? I could pass out dollar bills and chocolate and y'all, like, it's just not going to be something to engage, right? So how can I not just hook the students, but how can I help them sustain that engagement through the class and then self-regulate, meaning self-choose to continue doing the work when it may not be a preferred activity, all right? So that's multiple means of, oh, it's not going to show up on the screen. That's the green section, the limbic system. We'll talk more about multiple means of engagement. The second is recognition networks. Now, here's why CAST is important, and you should keep up with what they're doing. Before 2018, the researchers thought the way that we model our content was most important. But through more research and more working with children, really, motivation and engagement we find are the most important in learning. So the purple networks are highlighting your temporal lobe, your occipital lobe, and your parietal lobe. How many of you have said, I'm a visual learner? Okay. How many of you said, I'm an auditory learner? Okay. How many of you said, I learn best through movement? What's interesting is some of you raised your hand more than once. So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning is actually a myth. All of that, I mean, we're all auditory learners and visual learners and kinesthetic learners, but we have preferences for that learning, right? If I was truly a visual learner, then the only reception that I would get would be through that occipital lobe. I wouldn't have any auditory input or any kinesthetic input, right? But when you're reading a book, we still have those, even though I prefer my iPad, right? We have the tactile input of the page. We can use our fingers to track the words. The smell of the book is another sensory input we can see, and that auditory of turning the page or our tracking across, all of those things give us input when we learn. And we're going to talk more about representation. But when we're learning, be it math or English or science or music, we're connecting to all of those areas in the brain. But you might have a student who is visually impaired. So you're going to have to connect more to the auditory and the tactile, or you might have a student who is hearing impaired. So you need to touch into those other senses. UDL accounts for that. And then finally, the frontal lobe is where we have executive functioning and planning. By the way, if you are not over the age of 25, your brains are still not fully myelinated. That means your brains are still growing, which sometimes can make executive functioning, planning, and organizing more difficult, right? So think about an 8-year-old kid or a 12-year-old student in your middle school band or a 17-year-old senior in your high school orchestra. They still are learning to be organized, to use executive functioning, to participate in your ensembles. How can we provide them ways to show what they know outside of chair tests or sight reading tests or other types of playing tests? How many of you have been in a class where the types of learning you were asked to do didn't jive with how you think? There is no judgment here. Like, you know, no one's taking notes, I promise, okay? Same for me. When I went into my undergrad experience, I was talking to Michelle about this morning. I learned to harmonize from TLC, Salt and Pepper, and Vogue, from Tom Petty, some even AC/DC. I had an eclectic background of music. And then when I stepped into my undergrad position, those musics I was told weren't real musics. And I had to learn to be a musician in this way. And it didn't always function with the way that my brain was organized, because I didn't grow up with Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms. I didn't even know who Brahms was when I started undergrad, but my brain was organized around the harmonic, melodic, and rhythmic patterns of hip hop, rock, and metal. So how could my professors have provided multiple means for me to show that I actually was a musician? We're going to talk about it. Okay. Oh, no, we jogged it too hard. Go back. All right, so multiple means of engagement. I've kind of already gone over this for you. The slides are going to be here for you, so you don't have to worry about taking notes if that doesn't work for you. But we're looking at recruiting interest. That's the hook. What's your name? Jonathan. How am I going to hook Jonathan in the lesson? But not just hook Jonathan. How am I going to help him sustain? Right? Let's say Jonathan wants to be that high school band director, but he's in my elementary general music methods class. That's going to be hard for him to engage in, and rightfully so, right? I have to tap into his passions and his prior experiences. How do I do that? Because every single one of you have different prior experiences. And then eventually, the goal is independence. How can I step back and be that guide on the side so that the students are able to learn how to do that themselves, right? All of our goals as educators is not to be the sage on the stage, but to eventually step back so that the students can kind of run the show, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to take you through an activity, and I'd like for you to consider how many ways did I motivate you for this activity? How many ways did I hook and engage your understanding? All right. All right, so friends, take a look at the board. What do you notice? You can just shout out. Shapes. What else do you notice? Notes. Yeah. Do you recognize those notes, friends? By the way, I'm going to put my elementary general music teacher hat on, so please know that I'm not talking down to you. I'm simply modeling teacher language. So we have shapes, we have notes. What else do we recognize or see? Say it again.
Like some of the shapes are darker.
Yes, absolutely. So the shading is a little bit different. And what do you see in my hand? Colors. It is a band. Friends, this is one of my most favorite toys. This is called a beat band, and you can use it for a variety of things. So although I'm modeling something that I would do in an elementary school classroom, after this activity, I'm also going to ask you how you might do this in an ensemble classroom and how this might benefit an orchestra or a choir or a band or a digital ensemble. Would you, if you are able and comfortable, come join me on the floor? And I'm going to sit too, so leave space for me. We'll make a circle-ish, oval-ish. Awesome. Okay, would you hold this? Thank you. I'm going to bring it back. And then would each of you reach in and grab part of the band? Excellent. Oh, this is perfect. We have tension. So I'm going to start chanting. You can listen. You can look at the shapes and notes on the board. And I want to see if you can connect to what I'm saying to what's on the board. Would you make small circles with me? My mother, your mother live across the way, and every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Bum, 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 bum. My mother, your mother live across the way, and every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Do they do, do they do, do, do they do. Now, we don't always, not everybody has a mother. Maybe they have a father, maybe they have a grandma or an auntie or an uncle. Who should we use instead of mother? Friend, I like it, thank you. My friend and your friend live across the way, and every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Do they do? Do they do? Are you noticing anything between what I'm saying and what's on the board? Ooh, rhythms, because I think it said that we had notes on the board. So I'm speaking those notes that are up there. So here's what I'd like for us to do, and I appreciate that you're keeping that beat and you're not speeding up. FYI, kids will always go faster than you want them to, because their little heartbeats are like going a mile a minute. It's so much fun, I love elementary. I would like for you to be that friend, and we're gonna have a little spat. We're not gonna get physical. Safe hands, safe bodies, friends, okay? But I'm gonna say 4 beats. And I need you to say 4 beats. And you can use any of those that are on the board, okay? So I go first and then you go. Are we all gonna sound the same? Is that okay? Yes, it is. Please encourage your students that it's okay to be different than those around them, because testing homogenizes students, and that's awful. Let's not do that in the music classroom, okay? All right. My friend, your friend, lives across the way. And every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Do they do? Do they do? Do they do? Do they do they do they do they? Do they do they do they do they? Do they? Do they? Oh, you echoed me. Do you think you could make yours different from mine? And this time let's do my auntie, your auntie lives across the way. And every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Do they? 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 You're not invited to this series. Okay. So this time, instead of me participating, could I have you're gonna be neighbor 1 and you are going to be neighbor 2, okay? So who goes first? Oh, neighbor 1, and who goes second? Okay. My uncle, your uncle lives across the way, and every night they have a spat, and this is what they say. Do they? Do they? Do they? Do they? Do they? Okay, and freeze. So think about how many different ways did I encourage you? Did I motivate you? Did I ask you to sustain, to hook in, to demonstrate your own? How many different ways did I do that? How many ways did I hook you? You know, I'm not looking for a number. Just give me something I did.
Call and response.
Okay, that's one.
Calling out the positive, the good behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Think about you are college students. You're like, oh, that, right? Yeah. High school students and middle school students are going to want to as well, right? So this is nothing, is related to UDL, but how many of you have worked with high school groups or middle school groups who cannot synchronize on the beat? Right? Okay, no amount of marching or tapping a drum, they need to have that kinesthetic, that visual to help synchronize. So what does this band provide? It provides a steady beat, right? Because they're tapping on the leg. What else does it provide? Motion. Does it provide a visual?
Yeah.
Right? Some students need to see. I'm a firm believer in sound before sight, but this is still sound before sight. I just provided a visual anchor, okay? That leads us into representation. So the next activity we're gonna do is multiple means of representation. Let's try it here first, even though we haven't talked about it. Multiple means of representation is how many different ways you can represent what's being taught, right? So this activity was for beat and for rhythm. How many ways did I show beat? That's one. What's another way? The board, How else did I show the beat?
I don't know if it's
Young,
this. I don't know, it's just, we're all doing it together.
yeah, so community, but also the band,
Yeah.
right? What do you notice about the notation on the board? You all mentioned it earlier. Yeah, the shading, the shape. So if I have a student who is learning English as a first language, and those symbols of the notes do not connect with them yet, they have 3 different shapes and 3 different shades that they can know. Each one is different, right? Now, one more thing, and we're gonna talk about paraprofessionals on tomorrow. Oh, no, don't let go. You all keep holding it like this. Several of your students might need support. I encourage you to not go to hand over hand immediately because that takes away the students' autonomy, right? Imagine times where you've been in a classroom and a professor's just assumed, or a teacher has just assumed you can't do X, Y, Z, right? That steals your autonomy because you haven't been provided a way to show, oh, I can do it. So think about a student who maybe doesn't have good strong motor skills in their hands, or maybe doesn't have motor skills below their neck. Your hand, instead of doing this with them, by doing that, I've totally set her apart from the entire class. I've othered her. But what I can do is ask, can I wrap this around your wrists? And if so, would you start keeping the beat and just watch what happens? I'm not moving my arms. Who's moving my hands? You are. But do I have autonomy? Yeah, I do. So things like this, thank you, and thank you. Things like this help you to include students and motivate students, but also provide entrance to participate in independent ways. Cool? All right, every kid wants to do this, so we're gonna pull it back, and I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and on 1, I need you to let it go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. Thank you so much. So we did a little bit of engagement and motivation. This next part we can do from the seats if you want to head to your seats. So representation. First is perception. How are the students perceiving what I'm showing them, right? So if I have a student who's colorblind, if I've used colors, they're not going to be able to see what's on the board, but variant volumes or shades of blacks and grays and whites will help that notation stand out. Also, language and symbols, describing what they're looking at, providing inactive, iconic, or symbolic notation. Also helping various ways to decode for text. So if I have a student who's non-speaking, I could have this not only on the board, but I could give everybody the option of having those shape cards in front of them, and a student could simply tap. And it doesn't have to be just non-speaking. Somebody who's non-speaking could also be selective mute, or a student who has performance anxiety. Rather than speaking, they can point and show. And then comprehension, that students understand what they're learning, right? So a student may be able to comprehend the activity through the visual. They might be able to comprehend the activity through the spoken, or they might get more comprehension from the doing, the inactive. Sorry, not the inactive, but the active part of the visual of the band, right? Are you following me? Yes? Nah, kind of. No, you're going too fast. You are all too old for Blossom, but I talk very quickly like Blossom's friend 6. All right, so I'm going to take you through one more activity of multiple means of representation, and then we're going to split into group work for the last one. All right. So what do you notice that's on the board, y'all? Shapes. What do you notice about the shapes? Ooh, they're different colors, but also they're at different levels. Anything else? It looks like a what? Elf, oh! I hadn't noticed that, but now I'm always gonna remember it. Thank you. Would you echo me? Do, re, mi. Do, re, mi, re, do. Mi, re, do. Do, re, mi. Do, re, mi. Mi, re, do. Mi, re, do. Thank you. Would you echo me? And you can decide when you echo me if you want to sing only, sing and point to the shapes, sing and use hand signs, or maybe you just use hand signs, or maybe you just point to the shapes. It's up to you. Mi, mi, re, re, do, do, do. Mi, re, re, do, do, do. Do, do, re, re, mi, re. Do, do, re, mi, re. Re, re, mi, re, do, do, do. Excellent. Okay, so what I'm showing you, I would not do all in one class, but I have this much amount of time and like this amount of much to give you. Okay, so like don't automatically think your students are going to be able to decode patterns. So now, friends, I'm going to take the syllables away. Instead of singing on mi, re, do, I'm going to sing on bum, bum, bum. And I would like you to tell me the syllables. So same thing. You can show me you know the syllables by pointing to the shapes. You can show me by using hand signs, or you can show me by singing and pointing, or singing and using hand signs, okay? Bum, 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 bum. Think. That was excellent. So I try to give students a space to think, but you all don't need that, so I'm just going to take it away. Let's try another one. Bum, 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 bum. Re, re, mi, re, do, do, do. Bum, 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 bum. Do, do, mi, re, mi. Thank you. Okay, so this time I would like for you to create your own pattern. So we have do, re, mi. I'd like for you to use each pitch that we have. You can either choose to do 4 individual pitches, or if you would like to use rhythm and singing, let's do duple. So our do day, our rest. Okay. So you're going to think about your pattern, and then you're going to sing your pattern, or sing and point, or sing and use hand signs, or just point, or just use hand signs. Okay. Yes, I get it. Kind of, sort of, not so much. Okay. You're going to make up your own pattern using do, re, mi. Either singing and hand signs, or singing and pointing, or just singing. It's up to you. You choose. Is it going to sound fabulous? I think so. It might. But are we all singing the same thing? No. So there might be a little dissonance. Don't be afraid of dissonance. Dissonance is lovely. Here we go. Think. Sing. Do, mi, re, do. I love dissonance. Change it, please. And go. Do, re, do. Think about one more. Sing. Cool. All right, so let's go back. And I hope you're noticing that I'm doing more than just representation. I'm doing engagement, representation, and action and expression, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we're going to. How many different ways did I represent the activity? The whole purpose was to work on do, re, mi, to work on decoding, to work on creating. We didn't read. I'm not a huge fan of Western notation. I feel like if we develop the ear, the reading will fall into place, right? And a lot of the musics that we teach don't need to be notated because their cultural music is oral. So we need to honor that by teaching it in that way, right? That's another component of universal design for learning, is that you should center the students' culture in your instruction and curriculum and planning, which means first and foremost, learning about and building relationships, not only with the students, but outside in the community. Be open to learning. Trust me, I've been doing this since 2001, and I'm still learning and I'm still making mistakes because that's just how it goes. So don't be afraid to get it wrong, because the more you get it wrong, the more you'll get it right, and the more open you'll be to learning. Whew, soapbox, let's get back over here. Okay, representation. You're following me, I appreciate it. How many different ways did I show you do, re, mi? Say it again. Okay, on the board, what did I use on the board?
The shapes, but also like it starts like do, re, mi. So you're going up and you're going down.
Yes, so yes. Anything, anyone else?
The colors.
The colors. How else?
Yeah.
We had hand signs. What else did I use? Ooh, I used the fingers, but I never mentioned it as an option. But you picked it up and that's how you chose to engage, which was awesome, right? Anybody else? Singing, absolutely. Okay. So I gave you multiple ways to perceive it: visually, oral, tactile. I did provide clarification because I asked you what you saw on the board first. I asked for you to tell me what you saw so that I could see if I needed to clarify. But that also goes back to recruiting your interest and helping you sustain, right? So these things are not linear. These principles are not, you just do one. I hope you're seeing that engagement, representation, and action and expression will overlap, okay? It sounds complicated, but it's absolutely not. And then lastly, highlighting patterns, guiding your information, seeing if you comprehended it. How did I check to see if you knew what to do? Go ahead.
You give an assessment, like everyone do different melody, but we all did it together. It wasn't like singing.
Right, and after I did it as a group, I could have gone, sing your pattern, Jonathan, sing your pattern. But do you remember when I was doing this? I'm checking for understanding. Do you comprehend whether it's hand signs, oral, shapes, or colors? Are you able to follow? Also doing quick I call them evaluations, and other people do too. It's not just me. Evaluations are snapshots in the moment of how the students are doing. Assessment is an overall larger picture. So a quick evaluation would be like, hey, play this fingering for me, or hey, what do you recognize on the board? Or hey, can you show me this? Whereas an assessment might be, can you play this piece using shapes, using notation, using hand signs? Action and expression. How many of you like to play video games? Yes, you are my people. Okay, so I've been playing video games since the original NES, actually before my friend had an Atari. I never had any of these systems. I got a Nintendo once the Super Nintendo came out, because then it was affordable for me to purchase. So all of these games have different levels. You can play it at easy, you can play it at medium, or you can play it at hard or difficult. Or I think some games now have nightmare. I think that's a level. That's universal design for learning. Providing multiple means of action and expression. How many different ways can Jonathan show that he's learned the content? How many different ways can you show that they have learned the content? Right? So I need to have an easy option, a medium option, and a difficult option. That doesn't mean that the content has changed, right? When you play a video game on easy, medium, and difficult, the level doesn't change. The gameplay doesn't change. The only thing that changes are the challenges that you encounter, right? So if you're playing Zelda, Link to the Past on easy, you're going to encounter less bosses or less barriers to that final end game, right? But if you played on difficult, there's going to be more bosses, more tricks, more what have you, right? That you have to get through. So you're looking at different levels of challenges that you're providing students, right? How many different ways can they show? So if we go back here to our singing activity, how many different ways could you have shown me that you could echo or sing? 100% hand signs. So just using the hand signs would be easy. Hand signs and singing could be medium or difficult depending on the challenge. You know, 3 notes. I may not need 3 levels. I might only need 2. How else could you choose to show that you knew? Yep, pointing, 100%. Anything else?
To need the self-pledge instead of just the icon.
Yeah, I mean, that 100%, if a student doesn't have the spoken language yet, but they can vocalize, they can sing on a neutral syllable rather than the syllables. Could I have given you all shape cards to point to as you sang? 100%, but I could only fit so much in my suitcase. And if you come today at 3:30, I brought a ton of assistive devices that you can explore and play with. So I do hope that you'll come back and hang out. So multiple means of action and expression. I'm allowing students to choose, and they're getting ready to change the language, by the way. They're working on UDL 3.0 or 3 point something. And they're taking away the word provide because they feel like there's a power dynamic. I don't know if I agree with that, because as a teacher, if I'm providing the student something, I'm also saying, can you provide me with something? Because you might have a better idea of how you learn. Well, you will have a better idea of how you learn than I do, because you know yourself better. So physical action, are there ways that students can communicate what they know by doing something? Hand signs, writing, working on a computer. How many different ways can students express what they know? If I had brought my assistive devices, I might prefer to use Koala Sampler to respond and sing. I might choose to use those switch buttons to sing, right? So can I use physical action? Can I use multiple media? Recording, video, typing, pencil, paper. And executive functioning. How am I helping the students to organize their knowledge? Did I help you organize back here? How? Can you give me one?
You want to help your pointing up as you're singing.
Okay, modeling. Absolutely. So again, are you seeing how these overlap? Right? Doing something for representation can also then be used for action and expression. Doing something for motivation can also represent something. You don't have to think, oh, everything at engagement has to be different than everything at representation. You're going to flow into one another. Okay? So with the time that we have left, you can choose to work by yourself, or you can choose to work with a partner. Okay? This is me providing agency and providing multiple means of action and expression. Lets the students show you, tell you what works best for them, right? Obviously, walking out of the classroom is not an option, or not doing anything is not an option. But if you provide students options as to how to do the expected learning activity, you're going to have more engagement, right? All right, so you're going to choose your own adventure, whether it's elementary general or a secondary ensemble. I've given you a scenario, and you are going to use a application called Corgi. Corgi is a type of brain mapping that was developed by CAS, and you are going to choose how you would use UDL to process this lesson. So if you are an elementary general music teacher, you are going to teach the echo song Charlie Over the Ocean. If you don't know Charlie Over the Ocean and you would want to do a different song, feel free to choose a different song than what I have up here. And the purpose of the singing game, it's an echo song, is to work on developing the child's singing voice. It's also a game that allows you to do an informal evaluation. Can that student match my pitch? Or do I need to continue to do more work to develop their singing voice? And also it's turn taking. So how am I developing social skills with this as well? Taking this idea, you're going to tell me how many different ways can you engage? How many different ways can you represent? And how many different ways can students show what they know? Action and expression. If you choose the secondary ensemble adventure, your high school is performing Carmina Burana. I chose this on purpose, right? Because some of you might be orchestral, some of you might be wind band, like some of you might be choral, and that includes everything, right? It has all of the stuff. One of the goals is performance, but your other goals is application of music theory to aesthetic interpretation. How is Carl Orff's writing informing the performance? What was the aesthetic, the interpretation behind the performance? Instrumental technique. How is the brass playing different than the woodwind playing? What are the different techniques being used by the orchestra to reach that aesthetic performance? So using UDL, how will you process and prepare the rehearsals? Okay, so here's what I'd like for you to do. I'll take you through this so you can see. This is supposed to go right into a Google slide. So I had essential questions. So this is a guided explanation, a question exploration guide developed by CAST. Obviously, it's not working. Yay. But I wanted to, for each of you, I'd say choosing either the elementary option or the secondary ensemble option, how many ideas can you develop to help students engage with the activity? I provided you media. And then what are the key terms? So I defined things for you so that you didn't have to go and do work on your own. And then I provided a video. So I have kinesthetic by working on the computer. I have visuals, I have video, and also you all working together in your group. So even though you would be the one doing engagement, there's still conversation happening. Does that make sense? And then I gave you an essential question to answer. You all were supposed to work in here and you'd have the opportunity to add your own media. So when you click this, you can add an image, embed a YouTube file, or do a link file from the drive. So let's work, how about we work on this together? Okay, let's go to the essential question and we'll do both elementary and ensemble. So take a few minutes, let's give 2 minutes, talk about how you would engage those you teach in that concert prep or that song prep. Go for it. So this time, consider, there's the essential question, and here is your, how will you represent your content through the lesson or the rehearsal? How will you use visuals, movements, symbols, manipulatives, etc. in your ensemble rehearsal? In your lesson plan for the song. Take 3 minutes and talk, and then we'll share. Okay, so the last one was multiple means of action and expression. So we have only a few minutes. How could students take 1 minute? How could students in your future classroom who are playing Carmina Burana or singing Charlie Over the Ocean, how many different ways could they show you that they know the piece outside of the traditional playing? Take a minute. So here is my email. This is a QR code to the elementary presentation I gave you. You are welcome to snag that and take it if you want. But please feel free to take a picture of the slide for my email address. I won't be in there though. You are welcome to get closer. And thank you all so much for coming. This was great.